Beginup. and the left brain, which is going to be governing your right side of the body. Then materiality and texture. So all these depends on totally how your brain is functioning about. Next. Now, a person is a pessimist or is very excited or somebody who is very calm and listening, and all that is identified by the kind of the neurotransmitters that are there in a person. I will focus more on the children and the house because that is very close to my heart too. And if the person at the home is, say, has a memory issue or he is having a learning issue or calming issue, these things, we need to take into account and accordingly design if they have a memory problem. Recently, one of my faculty was telling that her father-in-law, he suffers from Alzheimer. And he has been throwing everything from the window down. Now the first thing comes in when all the materials of his wife is throwing from the window down into the ground floor, and they are in third floor or so. So now the question comes, like, when they knew very clearly there is a memory issue and there's a person, then why didn't some arrangement being made? Then the first question that I asked her was, did you make any arrangement to ensure that all the materials that is being dropped is collected in one place? She said yes. We fortunately took care of that. We made it kind of a trolley like anything he's throwing, it is getting into that, and we are pulling it out. Instead of they having to come down from the 3-4 down and then searching for the materials. So these are, for example, calming, learning, memory, euphoria, then mood, pleasure, then concentration. We talk of students not having concentration. It cannot be every time saying that the student does not like. It's not about like or dislike. The first thing we need to ask is, okay, the students, do they have sufficient neurotransmitters in their body for the concentration? You must have heard of this ADH people. They have certain chemicals which are too much and some are very less. So those kind of things we need to identify in the students. So this we started doing by, first we got our psychologist who tried to evaluate the students, and now we are going to be getting our neurologist into the action so that our students, we can make out what are the issues so that their learning becomes easier and what they design becomes really useful. Next. This is the book. I certainly say, request all of you to go through, probably this will help quite a lot. Architect's Brain, Neuroscience, Creativity and Architecture by Harry Francis Mulgrave, Willie Blackwell publisher. See, here you see, we talk about Alberti, Vitruvius, Leonardo, all these so many architects of the past. And their brains are all classified already. That is humanistic brain, enlightened brain, sensational brain, and whatever they design, they fall into these categories. That is what that book says. Okay, and then you have there's something called phenomenal brain, then neurological brain, then Gestalt brain, so many emphatic brain, animate brain. There is a classification of each of our brains. So it is very necessary we understand the inmate of a particular building, user of that particular building, what kind of a person he is, not from what he appears. Everybody will be appearing very happy and nice and telling, I want this, this, this. But internally there will be something else, which is in the subconscious, superconscious level. Perhaps sometimes they won't know, but their reactions tell us. Next. On this thing, this Indian architect, Sudhir Pasla, he has worked out, he says that while fractal-like shapes help us navigate within the building or this one, but it is better to have the spatial perceptions in terms of symmetry, connection, and simplicity. So this is what he has come out with a solution. Next. And there is one more architect, Thomas Fisher, who has worked on this particular concept of when they are blind. What is it that needs? They will not tell you. All of us, we think that if they have that stick and they can walk around everywhere. No, we have seen that happening, like when they are crossing the road, they are falling, and they tend to cross the road at the same place where they have always been crossing the road. They don't go to the unknown locations just like that. They need some, experience walking in that particular path quite a number of times. So what you see in the red zone is the one which is actually the trigger point for them, and that is what makes them understand in their brain, okay, this is this place, this is how I need to walk. Next. This is again the same thing. Acoustical, they talk of acoustic and tactile, and these are the red marks that are being put at edge. They are the treatment areas needs to be done to make them, take those paths. Next. Neuroarchitecture applied in children's design. This is what I would be just speaking for a few minutes. There are 12 principles that are there in this presentation that will be, this is being live telecast and will be available in your YouTube, that you can go
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the most talented women. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Professor Dr. Architect Chandran Rekha Jetty, ma'am. May I request all of you to kindly give a round of applause? Thank you. The very next speaker that we have amongst us that I'm going to invite is a graduate from the School of Planning and Architecture, and since 1996, he has been a master of his own career. In the year 2001, the studio got an important break with DMRC. Being a progressive organization, they allowed ANA to bid for, and henceforth, they won their first design commission for buildings. Ladies and gentlemen, may I kindly invite Mohammed Amin Nair, Architect Mohammed Amin Nair, currently leading a team of architects and engineers working across India, West Africa, and some parts of the Middle East. There is a strong push towards back-end integration of materials and industrial processes to create meaningful, eco-centric, and sustainable architecture. With a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, I would be very happy with a round of applause. I would welcome Architect Mohammed Amin Nair amongst us to kindly share your experience with the architecturing field.
Thank you, Fazia.
Indeed, my pleasure, sir.
Dr. Nayak, thank you very much for having me here. And first of all, congratulations to all of you guys. Hard work, long hours, and finally the awards and accolades that follow. Before I start my presentation, have you heard the joke about the camel who walked into the bar? How many of you have heard the joke about the camel who walked into the bar? I haven't either. You seriously think I'm going to joke here? So all right. My practice integrates engineering, architecture, design, and we've had the good fortune of working in several countries, several cultures. And what I'm going to present to you today is a few thoughts of what's become a forefront topic in the last couple of years, and really has not left anyone untouched. Couple of images from last year. Migrant laborers, these are from Delhi, going back to where their home is when the pandemic hit. For me, this is really the enduring image of what the pandemic did to us in our country. And one of the things that really should be a point of concern for all of us, given the industry that we are in, is that an overwhelmingly large number of people who you see on the street over here and who walked back literally hundreds and thousands of kilometers belong to our industry. An overwhelmingly large number were people from the construction industry. And while it's easy to say there was a pandemic and this happened because of the pandemic, I do believe that when there is a crisis, like the one that we continue to face even today, it's not over yet, our weak spots come to the fore. And I believe that there has been a certain complacence in looking at our industry and our culture and our practices in terms of who they benefit. And therefore, like a typical, quote-unquote commercial architect like me who works with private sector clients, if you'd asked me a few years back who the most important person in my practice was, I would always say, oh, it's the client. But then if you look at the number of people who are quote-unquote the client who get affected by what we do, and the number of people who helped you to get there, there is an overwhelmingly large percentage of people who are not your clients, but are part of your ecosystem, and who need to be considered while we progress in our careers and build our nation. Another depressing slide. Most of you who are young would notice. This is a comparison between the salaries of architects, bankers, and lawyers. I don't want to read out the figures if they're not visible to you. You've won awards. I can see lots of fingers and lips. I can see smiles from people who I admire. A banker usually makes about 9 times as much over a 10-year career than an architect does. But if you look at the cash value of what you do over 10 years, you probably deal with more cash value than a banker ever would in 10 years. So then, where am I leading to? I am fundamentally leading to the idea that there is something inherently broken between our design ideas, what we want to achieve in our urban areas and urban systems, and how we are choosing to get there. And I do believe that India's been excellent at adopting technology. We've become a service-driven economy in the last several years, since we opened up in the 90s. Bangalore is the mecca of the software IT industry, and you can see the value that has been ingrained into the city and its surroundings and the state by what people have been doing over the last 20, 30 years. And then again, I'll give you a statistic. The total value of construction done in the country over the same period as the growth of the IT industry is roughly in the range of 30 times. So the value that we have impacted is 30 times the value that the software industry has impacted in the same period of time. And this is where I believe we have an opportunity to change. So the images on the left are the stuff that legends are made of. It's the blueprint of a building. I don't recollect now sending out a blueprint for, I don't know, maybe 12, 14 years. I don't think any of you use this technology anymore. You just print and you send, or you send an IT file. But the image on the left, my left, your right, is a BIM model of a building. It's a small academic building. It's a small institutional building. And the difference between what happens when you continue to try and do that with this technology is evident in what happens in our cities. So we are thinking in the 21st century. We want to leapfrog to something that goes beyond laying brick over brick and casting concrete and shutterings, etc. And I have in the last few years also heard a lot of chatter about, things are going to change the moment 3D printing comes in. Well, 3D printing will come in, but 3D printing will not come in the way that a lot of people are thinking, that they're going to be some sort of bots and robots who will just simply design some structures and they will just get put up by some guy or not even a guy, and you're going to have your buildings done like that. It's not going to happen like that. If you do a little bit of research on 3D printing and the technology that it needs, you will see that it has a lot of chemistry at the back end to be achieved before you can actually do 3D printing. How do you pour concrete or something which is a cementitious compound through a nib which is moving around like a printer and then build a building, etc. So I won't go into that. But broadly, we have a system of work which was a very 20th century, let's draft. And then that translation into construction is actually incomplete. So when you do a building set or a construction set in 2D using either hand tools or even CAD, it is actually impossible to communicate the entire building. You can draw only those many elevations, you can cut only those many sections, you can print only those many drawings. And one of my pet peeves on site is that you will go into a construction site 3 months or 4 months or 6 months into construction, and the project manager would have sent you a long list of RFIs saying, this is not clear and I want this and I want that and this information is not there. You go to the site and you will find absolutely crisp, clean drawings that you had given 6 months ago lying in somebody's cupboard, not read. And typically, it used to be, like I said, it's my pet peeve. I used to get very upset with project managers. And I realized that if I was to put in that position and I was to sit in a container and try and read 300 drawings on white paper and try and make sense of them, I probably would not do it. And I simply don't have the bandwidth to be able to absorb 300 or 400 or even 1,000 drawings that a typical project would require. The answer then again is visual. And if you move to the idea of putting this information on an easy to use model, something that a project manager can strap on a little tablet on his arm and then carry out the construction, you will find that your communication has improved drastically. In our organization, we have the good fortune of being working in several countries. But our travel costs are quite low because we don't actually physically need to go to those countries so many times. We do, but funnily enough, the pandemic didn't impact that aspect of our business. We're still doing work in South Africa, in West Africa. We're still doing some work in the Middle East because the relationships are there and the documentation goes electronically and there's no problem. The point again I'm trying to make is that there is an industrial process to our construction and design which would improve the lot of the entire set of people who work with us beyond the design community and the client community. This is one of my favorite images on the left-hand side. The top image is the bonnet of an ambassador car. Classic vehicle, Netaji's vehicle. So, everybody knows that. And if you go back one generation in your family, your dad probably had an ambassador or a Fiat. So if you had a professional dad, an educated guy, he would have a Fiat. And if you had like a business guy, you would have an ambassador later on, Contessa. But if you look at the bonnet, it's a mess. It's got everything. It's got an engine, it's got a carburetor, it's got battery, it's got a little tub of coolant sitting on the back. Our buildings are something like this. If you look at our buildings, we put spaces together, but they are an ambassador or a Fiat engine. And we all know what happened to them. They were obsolete. Despite all government protection, despite the fact that we were a closed economy, despite the fact that manufacturing was difficult, they shut down. And the lower image, I don't know if you guys can see it, is your typical, it's I think a Hyundai. It's a typical mid-level car that all of us would probably own or have moved on from. You look at the engine, you look at the materials, it's a lot of polymer that you see, very little aluminum, very organized, cable connections are clear, and you can just push the start button and go anywhere for a weekend trip without having to worry about whether your car's been serviced or not. And a lot of you are much younger to me, but the guys sitting here will recognize it when I say that before, when you had these Fiats and Ambassadors and you wanted to go for a weekend trip to Mangalore or even Mysore, you would first send it to Salim, the Mistri, and say, can you please check the car, I'm going out tomorrow. Because these things were not dependable. The unfortunate part of our industry is that our buildings are not dependable. And they're not dependable on very basic things. Waterproofing still fails. How many of you have projects running which are over schedule? Mine, all of mine are. Every single project that we're doing is over schedule, no shame in admitting it. But if you look at other industries that we interact with, mobile phones, cars, it's not like that. The other thing that has happened during the pandemic is that in our industry, when you've gone back, especially in June, July of last year, you've had to go back to your clients and say, okay, you budgeted 100 crores for this project. It's not going to happen in 100 crores. Now pricing has gone up. It's now going to be 110, 120, depending upon the size of the project. So even if you were doing something which was 2 crore rupees, it hasn't been finished in 2 crore rupees. You've either had to put more cash or curtail your desires. But that didn't happen in the other industries. Your phones didn't become more expensive. Did Apple come back and say, oh, there's been a pandemic, now Apple phones are going to cost 20% more, or Samsung, or whatever else you buy? Did the car industry do that? Did they come back and say, oh, now you can't buy yourself the model that you're looking at because this year there's been a pandemic and there's a 20% rise? When Tata raised their prices by 1% of their cars, it was commercial news in the commercial newspapers and magazines. The Tata is going to raise 1% cost to cover whatever. Something has happened where these guys, whose cars are dependable, whose phones are dependable, the battery doesn't run out, you've got all kinds of nice cameras in your phone, the car functions very well, it comes out of the showroom, pristine condition, you have predictable performance criteria in these cars, you will always ask, the famous Indian quote, kitna deti hai? Building ke baare mein nahi pooch sakte ho, kitna deti hai, because if it doesn't leak, you are blessed. Those are the things which somehow fell on the wayside. And that's the gap. All of you guys sitting here are award-winning architects and designers. Every single one of you, even the youngest ones, are people who've made a mark in the last few years. And of course, we've got doyens sitting here, people who I admire and have followed work and so on. Something has happened where our brain power, our design power, our ability to conceptualize building at a grander scale has gone on increasing exponentially. I mean, you look at the way our designs are today and the awards that you win. 15 years ago, 16 years ago, there used to be 2 architects, 3 architects winning awards. Today, it'll run into dozens, and very rightly so. But if you look at the performance of our buildings in terms of predictability of waterproofing, how much energy are they going to use? How much landfill am I going to cause by creating a project in place A or place B? Do I plan for it? I don't. Do you ever see landfills around car manufacturing industries? They have their own pollution issues, and I'm not trying to bat here for the petrol industry. But you don't have landfills around car manufacturing, ship manufacturing, phone manufacturing, whatever else. There is e-waste, all that stuff. So again, don't mistake my point for trying to bat for them. But that connect between our brain, what we think conceptually, space-wise, technology-wise, performance-wise. We had such an enlightening lecture about neuroscience and architecture. I mean, I had never looked at it in that manner, and today I realized that there's a lot of value to what Madam was just telling us. But between that and its translation to when it actually physically gets done, there is a problem. And the answer, as far as I'm concerned, with my little knowledge, the answer is technology. If we can move towards a technology which is back-end integrated to industrial processes and look at components of our design to be industrially produced. And when I say industrially produced, again, I am not looking at Soviet-era mass housing, which is depressing. Industrially produced phones are very sexy. Cars are very nice. Clothes that we wear are industrially produced and are very nice. We need to, all of us, need to start thinking about it, because the biggest benefit will not just be the lack of landfill or the fact that there would be predictable waterproofing. We will, as an industry, as a community, be able to pull out the equivalent of close to 17 crore people, 17 crore people out of poverty by giving them better environment and better tech to work with. And that's kind of, just a few examples of stuff that I'm talking about, which we're already doing. So you can see industrial processes sitting in the manufacturing of buildings. But this really is the last slide that I want to tell you. I really hope that in the next 4 to 5 years, our industry will create work environments for our construction workers along the line of what you see in industrial plants. You don't need to have people living in hovels and shacks, poorly clothed, poorly fed, building buildings for us. And that's really the tech that I'm talking about. Whether you call it BIM, you want to go with CAD, you want to work with Autodesk or somebody else, do think about the idea that your design could have components that are industrially finished and can come into being using industrial processes in a respectable, dignified manner, rather than the way we currently choose to do it. I'll end my talk there. Picture dekhni hai? Movie bhi hai mere paas ek. So this is a small building in, something wrong with the sound. This small building, very small building in Nigeria. And I purposely chose to get it here. It's not a grand project. The total built-up area is less than 10,000 square feet. And it belongs to this really grand lady who's come up with the scheme of somewhat like what Amul did in India, cooperative in milk. So it's a milk processing plant. But what you will see is that every single component that needs to go into this building has been pre-designed, pre-engineered. And as a part of the process of working with them, except for the civil works, which is the concrete and the steel work that needs to go in, everything else was pre-engineered, manufactured in India, put in a set of containers, and has been sent there for installation. Hopefully this building will be complete. Maybe if I see all of you again in a year from now, I'll have photographs of this completed building. And it's just 9,600 square feet. And it cost them about 7% less than what it would have otherwise. The building is predictable, the building works in a particular manner, and it's got all the fancy architecture stuff that you want to do, it is in space for people and so on and so forth. But it's something that you can do for small, large projects. It's a thought that I wanted to leave all of you with. Thank you very much for giving me the time, and congratulations once again.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for architect Mohammed Amin Nair. So on that note, we have our very next speaker, a young, dynamic, talented, a guy who needs no introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, may I please invite on stage beatboxer, National Award-winning architect, entrepreneur by default, one of India's leading beatboxer with over 750 plus shows and beatboxing workshops across India. First ever beatboxer to work on a project for the United Nations, where he collaborated with over 1,200, ladies and gentlemen, with over 1,200 plus singers from 12 countries to promote international peace. Open for international artists such as Accent, St. Paul and Cardinal Official. Ex-youth ambassador for Adidas Originals and JBL. CEO and founder for B4Beatbox, India's first and leading startup to conduct live beatboxing tutorials. First Indian beatboxer to feature in a concept commercial for Pepsi, conducted India's biggest beatboxing workshop at VR Mall with over 3,500 plus participants, along with Virat Kohli and Chris Gayle and Ranveer Singh. Founder of Dot Lab, a design-centric firm focusing on design, education, research and technology. Ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned earlier, this young talented guy, the architect Abhishek Bhaskar. May I please welcome you on stage with a round of applause. I'm sure your mic is sanitized.
Yes.
He told me like 10 times, sanitize karke dena.
It's better to be careful especially. So, hey guys, good morning. Yes? All right. My name is Abhishek Bhaskar and it's a pleasure. Take your right and meet it with your left. All right? What happens? Exactly. All right? Let's try this out. 3, 2, 1, go. Nice, very good. Wait, please don't sit down. All right, now, if you realized, there were a couple of sounds which were there in beatboxing, right? One was, the second one was, the third one was, all right? Now for each sound, we're gonna trigger a human movement, all right? Basically, I'm gonna be designing your movements for the next 1 minute, all right? For every sound, like, you're gonna jump, all right? Can we do that? Come on, don't be shy. This is your time to do it, all right? Super. Clap. All right? Will be shout as loud as possible. Forget who's next to you. Scream as loud as possible. Scream, scream, go for it. I think, yeah, you should lead the charge.
Yes,
Just
I will
scream.
do that. Okay.
All right? 3, 2, 1.
Woo! 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 Woo!
All right, we're gonna try this out right now. All right? If you hear one particular sound, interpret it as to whatever you're hearing. All right?
Woo! Woo!
Awesome. Everyone's energized? Yes?
I'm
Super.
sure
Now we can
all
get into the
are.
technical details. Awesome. Thank you so much, Fauja. Give her a huge round of
Thank
applause,
you.
everyone. Come on. Okay. Now to the technical side. Why exactly is this guy who makes noises with his mouth on stage, right? Can we have the presentation, Anup sir? Anup sir, can we have the presentation? Yeah. Okay. So as I said, I've been working on fusing these two things, which I understand, that is design and beatboxing, right? And this happened when I was interning in my 5th year of architecture at SDEG, Sujit Nair Design Group. And with my co-interns, I still remember the exact moment where I thought of, okay, why not fuse beatboxing and design together? So that was where voice texture was born. So where it gives us the ability to design objects or buildings using the human voice, right? That was the core of my research project. And what that translated into version 1.0, was basically, I think we can have the first video. Yes. Can we have the audio as well? So what you'll be seeing here will be a basic chunk, like a choco block sort of a building, and that is reacting to the human voice, in this case, beatboxing. Stop it. Okay, we can move on to the PDF document which is there. No, we can stop this. We can stop this and get on to the PDF. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So what you saw there was essentially a stimulus and a response. A stimulus is basically where you pinch, right? And it hurts you and there's a response. So that is what is happening here. The stimulus is basically my voice and the response is this building sort of a structure reacting to it. So that was version 1. And again, I wanted to take this a step further until we came across this concept called metaverses and NFTs. How many of you have heard of NFTs right now? Yeah, 1, 2, that's amazing, right? So yes, 3. So this is an extremely new concept. And how many of you have heard of metaverses right now? 1, right? So it's an extremely new concept, and that has fascinated me ever since I saw a couple of videos where people were having online concerts. So me being here, it's kind of, I want to showcase my piece of what I've learned of what the future would look like in a digital space, right? 2 years ago, I was right here on stage saying that we could be having virtual conferences. This was way before the pandemic, and it's happening right now, right? The Zoom is our metaverse. So I just want to run you guys through what exactly I'm talking about. So throughout the next 10 minutes, either you'll get it completely or you might just get bits of it. But it's still a good start because we're setting it up for 5 to 10 years down the line. Okay, can we go to the next slide? Okay, forget that guy. So we can go to the next slide. This is just my introduction. So I just want to take you guys through what this particular piece is. So this was done by this artist called Beeple. And he made one artwork every day for 15 years. And this particular collage of artworks got sold for $69 million to a guy called Meta Cohen, who's basically a South Indian. His name is Sundaresan, right? So this was a digitally ownable piece of art. Right now, we get a lot of family forwards on WhatsApp, which is not cool at all, right? There, you can't find out the exact ownership, right? So here, in this case, through the concept of a blockchain, that is where you can track every single transaction and you can find out who owns what exactly, right? It's like looking at your wallet, which is completely transparent. That is the blockchain system. So this is owned by Meta Cohen for $69 million paid in this cryptocurrency called Ethereum, right? Again, this is not as cool as what metaverses are, but this became that particular moment where we shifted towards a whole new way of appreciating digital art, right? Can we go to the next piece? Okay. So I recently did this. So I was about to publish voice texture as a research paper so that people can understand what I'm trying to do with the human voice. So one of the use cases would be, if you can't hear music, you can see it and interpret music for yourself. Or if you can't design, if you're differently abled, you can design using your voice. So back in 2020, that's when I realized I need to get this out as an audio-visual experience, right? So basically an NFT, a non-fungible token, which is basically a piece of content that can be owned by people through the blockchain. Everything is transparent. So I did this for the August 15th, like the Independence Day drop, and that was covered by, Your Story, Business Insider, and a couple of other places as well. So what exactly I'm talking about would be in the next slide. Okay, so I went with 2 different pieces as audiovisual experiences. So one would be one particular genre of music, and the other one would be totally on a different genre of music. So the basic idea was to represent the human voice in different forms and track the visuals of that so that we can understand how we can design using the human voice. Can we play the second video? That is 01. So that was a 30-second clip of this genre of music called the Tapangutu, which is native to South India. And that got picked up within 1 minute by a collector from India as well. His name is Ramesh Gopal. For, I think, can we have the slide back up? So the basic intent of what I want to share is this whole new wave of digital design. And I'm not talking about CAD or, any of the software-based objects. I'm talking about a whole new digital universe that's being created as we speak right now. And architects are being hired for specifically building the digital universe. So last year, I was also on a panel where I specifically said we could be having these conversations completely in a digital format. My avatar, my 3D model could be here. You could be sitting at home having the same conversation or the same award ceremony, right? And that is exactly happening right now. Can we go to the next slide? So that is what the metaverse is. So we are actually right now, we are having a basic version of the metaverse via our Zoom calls every single day, right? It's not our avatars, it's just us, but we are interacting digitally. So yeah, this was picked up. That is through the blockchain, you can track the exact time it was picked up. And I had priced it at 1947 because of the Independence Day drop. And it was picked up by this person called Ramesh Gopal, who's a collector as well. So this became sort of like a benchmark of what digital design could be done. Like architecture is one aspect of it, right? But what you can do with architecture is so many other things. One of those examples is this particular thing. So right now there are people building digital assets. I am one of them. So who are called metaverse architects. So I'm just setting a vision for 5 to 10 years down the line. Right now the conversation is non-existent, but this will be a use case. How many of you seen the movie Ready Player One? Put your hand up. 4 people, right? So in that movie, it's basically a vision where in 2040, every single person is inside their house. As ma'am said, a lot of people are spending time indoors, right? So that future is more of, it applies for adults especially. Everyone is going to be at home and all their work will be done digitally. And you can head out to whichever universe you'd like or planet you'd like, and you can work over there. You can do your digital work and get paid digitally as well. So I know it's a very, it's a far away concept, but that is something which we should address as architects, because that is something which someone has to build it out, someone has to design it, right? So that is something which people could look into as well. And again, one of the most beautiful things about the metaverse, good and bad, is the laws of physics don't apply right now. So you could design a building that's completely leaning and people could be staying inside that building, right? So that's the beauty of it. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, so this is another initiative which I'd like to speak about in terms of digital design. It's called the Colors of India project. That is something where especially Ramesh Gopal is spearheading that project. It promotes digital art. It could be architects. And right now, most of the designers who are designing these non-fungible assets, right, they are architects themselves. So they're designing these digital objects. It could be anything. It could be a 3D model. It could be a skyscraper, right? You can sell those as NFTs to people who can use it as their own metaverse, like buy your own skyscraper, right? Different elements like that. So that is another whole new domain which has opened up for digital architects especially. Can we go to the next slide? So this is another thing which I'd like to talk about. These were some of the assets which I've collected. And this basically has these, right now they are 2D, but in the future they could be 3D. I could walk into a digital gallery, right, just by sitting at my home and then look at all these artworks. So that is what MetaCoven is planning as well. The entire population on this planet can come into one particular digital universe and they can view this particular, that $69 million artwork that was done. So that's the beauty or the potential of where we are heading to eventually. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So we could expect this, say, 5 or 10 years down the line. Can we go to the next slide? So this is something which I did just to experiment with these, what exactly are people looking for. So I just designed this 3D object. So I called it the Shardscapes. So it's something to do with, people having that push and pull with their heart. Every single emotion a person goes through, it makes them stronger at the end of the day, right? So if someone hurts you, you learn from it, you become stronger. If someone says something good about you, you feel good, you become stronger at the end of the day, right? So I wanted to interpret that in its visual form. And right now, even, so this happened yesterday actually, so I just put this slide recently as in like a couple of hours ago. So this 30 of these pieces, right now, people across the globe own it, right? And what they're already doing is they're putting this into real life. They're putting this into augmented reality, and they're dropping these objects. So I could drop that particular object right in this room, and we can walk around it. So people are interacting with these digital assets in real life. Can we go to the next slide? So this is one of the visions of what the metaverse exactly looks like right now. It looks pretty, simple, very basic in terms of a very 3D based object. So you have all these characters, not exactly 3D models, because that is very hard to do with the computational power we have right now. We can't exactly generate these 3D models. So this is what we are at right now. So you could go into this particular land and interact with people over there. So that is what is happening right now. Yeah, can you go to the next slide? So Facebook is doing something similar where they have architects, and I'm talking about real architects like you and me, right? Who are building out these entire cities for Facebook, and they're interacting in the metaverse as we speak right now. So that is an amazing thing. I think that's one of the executives of the Facebook board that's interacting with everyone else right now. So they have their own avatars which they've created that can interact, have meetings and coordinate discussions and every single thing possible. And this was the major turning point for the concept of metaverses. So again, these were designed by architects themselves, right? So this was the world's first, I think, where players, the game players, could go in and attend a virtual concert. So this was for this artist called Travis Scott, and the game was Fortnite. So they designed this entire metaverse just in a matter of 5 to 10 minutes, and they showcased that every single project of what the game exactly is planning. So again, here architects are playing a major role. Every single visual you see is designed by architects for that particular game. Yeah, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so this is an interesting piece that's happening. You can, I don't know who owns this plot right now here, right? But you could own the land, like digital land of exactly where Taj Mahal is located, or New York. It could be any place in New York as well. So you can buy any plot of land, and Earth2.io is another place where you can check or you can collect virtual land, and you can do whatever you'd like with it. You can hire architects to build on your piece of land. So that's another beautiful concept that's happening. So one of those examples is that it's very basic right now because, again, we don't have that computational power to generate real-time simulations as of now. But yeah, that is one of the aspects. Can we go to the next slide? Again, this is something which, I would love recommending if you can watch this movie, especially sirs and ma'ams. Watch this movie called Ready Player One if you can tonight, please. It's one of the most amazing movies ever. It will set up the vision for you for 2030, 2040. But even before that, it's exactly happening right now. We're all, at home. Not exactly right now, but yeah. We're at home, and, most of our work has become online, right? So this is something which proves that particular point. And these are all the other platforms where, even like there are 80-year-old people spending most of their time in the digital universe right now. So that's what is happening. Can we go to the next slide? So in the future, when I say future, I'm going to be doing this in the next 3 to 4 months. We're going to be having virtual concerts and virtual workshops on the blockchain. So, that is something that's going to be happening. And that is really exciting. And gaming, there are 80-year-olds gaming right now on the blockchain, right? Not age is just a number, but there are people doing it, so it shouldn't be a barrier to anyone. So yeah, that has been happening. And can we go to the next slide? Any questions regarding this? I would just like to take some questions if possible. Yeah, any doubts regarding the metaverse or anything like that? Sir? Yeah, so it's a very futuristic concept, but the basic idea being we can expect all these things to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, where all of us are building in the digital space. And even right now, I don't want to scare anyone, but even non-architects are building out the metaverse, and architects specifically are being hired to build out another person who owns a piece of virtual land. So I know it sounds very unrealistic, but it is happening right now, and it's just an eventuality. So, if anyone's looking at these, projects, Do look into it. It's an amazing whole new universe. Again, I had Dirt Lab. I still have Dirt Lab, but with that, this entire concept of metaverses has opened up, and I could open up my virtual Dirt Lab as an architectural firm and sell buildings as NFTs, like one-of-one buildings, so that I can never copy another building. In real life, that could be done. But on the blockchain, I can't do that. Once I design a house or a building or a skyscraper, it's done. I have to do something different. So that pushes us to be more creative as well. So yeah, that is what I wanted to discuss with you guys. And just one last activity, if you may indulge me in this, right? Can everyone please stand up for this? Yeah, with beatboxing this time, just to leave on a super high note. All right? Can we have the lights turned off? Awesome. Okay, everyone, I'm assuming you have your phone. You have your phone, right? You can take out your phone. Turn on the flashlight for that. I always love doing this. Yes, perfect, sir. Yeah, everyone take out your phone and your flashlight. Yeah, Fauzia, you can do it too.
Oh, I don't have it right now.
Okay.
Can I have your phone?
No, I don't have my phone right now. Anyways. Yes. Yeah, everyone, you can take out your phone and, all right? In 3, 2, 1, go.
Follow my steps.
And that was beatboxing, ladies and gentlemen. That's my time. My name is Abhishek Bhaskar. Anandji, thank you so much. And thank you so much for listening and not getting annoyed with this. It's a really futuristic concept, so I totally understand this. But yeah, I just wanted to share that so that we are prepared and we're ahead of the curve when it happens. Yeah, thank you so much.
With Anandji's permission, if I could just take a minute and ask Bhaskar to call, like last time we had somebody, so we can have someone on stage who can actually, you know, do
Anyone
a step
wants
on your
to
beatbox.
Dance?
No,
You
yeah,
mean dance?
that's what it is.
Does anyone want to dance?
30 seconds. You got to volunteer yourself. I'm sure dynamic,
Anyone?
strong,
I think last year we had
and
2-3
young
people
architects.
volunteering. Anyone wants to dance?
Raise
Okay.
your hand.
Fauzia, how about you?
नहीं, मैं तो हमेशा ही करती
Quickly, no worries. All right? Ready?
No, I think
Fauzia?
we can have somebody from the crowd. Yes, we
We see
the
a hand up there.
beautiful lady that side. Ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah.
kindly give a round of applause. That takes real courage, I'm saying you. That really takes a real courage. Okay, to all of you out there, I want you guys to get both your hands together and give a round of applause because she actually, ma'am, you volunteered yourself. And you look
Definitely.
elegantly beautiful.
Great. So which genre of music would you like, ma'am? What would you like to dance to? What makes you happy? Okay, let's do this. Yeah, people are sleeping off. Yeah, let's do something peppy. And let me actually do the South Indian beat, like the Tapang Guttu, right? It's a very peppy beat and you can interpret it in your own way. Right? So we are having like a live meta voice right now where I'm designing the human movement. All right? Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
I think man needs like some noise, guys. She's a Punjabi voice.
Oh, you're a Punjabi. I have a beat for that.
Wow.
Well done, ma'am. That's amazing.
Amazing.
Thank you.
May I kindly know your name, ma'am?
This is Architect Anupam.
Amazing. Give it a huge round of applause, guys. Come
Ladies and
on.
gentlemen, a round of applause.
Super. And guys, thank you so much for having me. My name is Abhishek Bhaskar. I'm 26 and I make noises with my mouth as per my mom. Yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we had Abhishek with his wonderful technology metaphor, and I'm sure it was amazing for you guys to discover something new, because this young guy always comes up with something new, and all the best to you. On that note, may I kindly request our very next guest to please come over on stage to share his experience. He is a partner at Creators Architect, founder at Black Swan Lab, and an innovation strategist. As a strong believer in transformation by design, he has developed science of innovation as his means of achieve this. Founded the framework called Diagnostic Innovation, he wrote the book Rebound, which talks about how innovation can be applied to business and not just bounce back but disrupt their market. He mentors entrepreneurs for innovation in their business and runs a mastermind group. Applied in architecture, he believes in outcome-driven model as a method that focuses on architecture, delivering what matters most to the client's vision. This leads to greater client success, greater ROIs, and ultimately a disruptive legacy in their own niche. Ladies and gentlemen, with a round of applause, I would like and request Mr. Architect Utsav Gupta ji to please come over on stage.
Thank you, Fazia.
Indeed, my pleasure, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be able to share some thoughts on one of my favorite subjects, innovation. But I like to begin by saying that innovation and design, it's not very different from the fraternity that we are in. Everybody knows about innovation and design, and in fact, our entire premises is based on this. So what exactly are we talking about when we say design by innovation or innovation by design? And what is the difference between these two approaches? Let me begin by just shedding a little light on the impact of innovation on our world. If we look at generally the publishing industry and the trend it has gone in the past 500 years, there's a steep surge that has been seen in the publication industry, and most of the surges have been attributed to one of the innovations that they have gone. Either it was the invention of the Heidelberg or the .com age or any other publishing media that has given the rise to the unique book titles that we have seen in the upcoming days. The same curve is being also seen in the airline industry, where the number of passengers traveling all the way to 2016 have only increased. Of course, this doesn't cover the impact of the pandemic. But the point is that all the points that are marked in red are representative of some innovation that happened in the industry which led rise to this kind of a surge. And more is being observed in almost every single sector, whether it's the energy, logistics, or the consumer electronics. More and more innovations are coming in, and the usability of that space is being increasing several folds. So it is not very revelating when we see this slide that if we don't innovate, the firms are going to die. That's the cost of doing anything. And there are many such examples, some of them very nostalgic for the firms who have perished away. I remember BlackBerry, which is one of the very most favorite firms, and the ambassador, of course, that Amin sir was talking about. Now, I want to take a minute over here and explaining and saying that these firms were very innovative in their own right. What happened was that they failed to carry forward that innovation across the time and therefore slowly perished. So what actually happened with these firms? And that is what my topic for today is, that what actually happened with these firms and what are we lacking in terms of innovation understanding, and especially how it is applicable to architecture. So this is one of my favorite slides, which actually got the ball ticking. McKinsey did a global innovation survey, which found out that 84% of the global executives say that innovation is extremely important. Not just one of the many things. It's clearly said it was an extremely important factor for the growth of any firm. Here's the news. Only 6% of the executives are satisfied with the innovation performance. Yeah? Despite the fact that 84% believe that it's a very important factor, only 6% are satisfied. Can you relate with this? How many of us can relate with this? Give you a show of hands. Yeah, I couldn't either. When I found this information, I couldn't either, because we are living in an era of innovation, and yet these statistics, they stumbled me completely. And that's where my journey began to understand that why is innovation so, it's less satisfaction happening at the executive level. And these are the common beliefs I saw when I was interacting with the entrepreneurs. Innovation is hard. They talk about innovation is hard. Successful innovations are by chance, by coincidence, and even better, by luck. So they just happen. You just try enough tries, you just try to make enough blows, and one of the blows might just fit, and therefore it is totally by luck. Successful innovations are expensive. That's also another belief. I think one of the reasons because they fail so many times that actually in the end of the fiscal year, it shows that there's a lot of money has already poured in. Yeah, so in the end, what we try to do is can I piggyback on the innovations instead of spending the entire time and the money myself? So that's the thinking that goes when we talk about the product development. And yes, one more thing, my innovations are not wanted by my customers. So I do innovate, but they don't want my innovation. So these are the beliefs that we are commonly found when we talk about innovation and why they are failing. So let's try and set up a new lens over here. Let's try and clear up the slate. And what I would like to show you is a little procedural method of how we uncover the science of innovation, which I have discovered in the past few years. And I would like to share that with you about my findings here. So little about myself and why I'm here speaking about innovation despite being an architect. I'm a second generation architect and a third generation entrepreneur, and being very passionate about the profession and having cared about the product very much. Something happened about 7 years ago in one of my projects that I took very personally, and it started going down the rabbit hole. And what I've learned through the journey is what I'm presenting today. I documented a lot of things which I found in my book Rebound, which was launched last year. And since then, I've been sharing my views and approaches with several entrepreneurs, because we're not talking about just architecture innovation, we're talking about the business innovation. Got a lot of interest, slowly picked up mentoring and teaching sessions with the entrepreneurs and the business, and ran a mastermind during the entire COVID period last year. So, what is innovation? When we talk about innovation, the first few images that comes to our mind is Apple, SpaceX, and Google, isn't so? How many of us can relate to that? That's what we feel that innovation is all about, Apple, SpaceX, and Google. And what are we really talking about here? Are we talking about the technology, or are we talking about the stuff they're doing? So is innovation totally relevant to only the tech world? Whereas, as Ms. Amin sir just talked about, the 30 times have been about contributing towards the construction industry. So how is the construction industry innovation stands out apart from what Apple and SpaceX are doing? Well, if you go to the rudimentary definition of innovation, innovation is all about making changes in something established, especially by introducing new methods, ideas, and products. That's the conventional definition, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, when we talk about this definition applied on the architectural realm, we often start with an idea. We brainstorm an idea, we often start with an idea. And in some cases, we also start with the problem. If you have a predefined problem, we analyze the possibilities, and then we develop the design. This typically is called as the product innovation. Yeah, so it's like a beautiful facade you see over here. It's obviously a result of a very good hard work, which has come up from various brainstorming sessions. And if I may say so, this is what is called as a product innovation. Now, why do some innovations fail? I was startled to see this piece of statistics that talks about why startups fail. And believe you me, 42% is because there is no market need. So what does that tell us? Why are startups venturing into the realm where is though there is no market need and 42% are failing? Well, because this approach that we are indulging into is called the ideas first approach. And ideas are like random. They just come, we just test them. It sometimes clicks, it sometimes doesn't click. So naturally the previous slide, it says that most often it has not clicked yet. And therefore, that brings us back to the definition of innovation. Is it really about new methods, ideas, or products? Or is it something more? We like to believe that it is about insights. We like to believe that it's a consistent stream of initiatives inspired by insights to bring incremental change value over time. So as they say, there is no dearth of ideas. there is a dearth of good ideas. So invest not in ideas, but in insights. So that will be my first lesson that I learned through this, when I went through this journey. And so in architecture, if you go back to architecture, the importance of processes comes along. So we say that, okay, don't focus on the focus on the process, not just designs. And we have all sorts of processes available to us. We have the genetic algorithm, we have the parametric design, we have the design thinking, we have the Evo-Devo theory, we have the green architecture. They all talk about the processes that lead to a certain method of developing the design. And we are hoping that those processes, we are able to channel the ideas, gain more insights, and therefore gain more success in the project. So that leaves me the second kind of innovation, which is the process innovation. And from the process, we come all the way back to the product. When we talk about the processes, every process leads to a certain kind of an outcome. Okay, an elephant, if we have two elephants, we have taken the elephant genes, they're both going to grow like an elephant. One elephant will be definitely different than the other elephant, but certainly not the other person is not going to go into a gorilla. It's definitely going to come into an elephant. And therefore, when you pick up a process, you start seeing associations. You start seeing associations of style, you start seeing associations of era, and you also start seeing associations of the typology. And so when the processes are evolved, and when the processes are adopted, they certainly give you a very nice typology for the first time, but the same process is now going to give you a very different typology on the other realms. And that is what the criticism of